we are working with the news by On3 that Joe Milton has opted out of the bowl game after being in practice. This is the biggest head scratcher for you since what, Caleb? Because why in the world would you go out there and practice and you open yourself up for injury if you're going to opt out anyway? So we discussed that possible whys, but just from the get, this wasn't well thought out. If you're going to go out there and practice, there should there should be nothing in the realm of possibility that would cause you to rethink your position that you're going to play, because you have just put yourself at risk of injury for a week's worth of game simulation practices. That's not real smart.
Yeah, this is. David Cutcliffe had a saying one time, and he said it when Peyton Manning chose Tennessee over Ole Miss, and he said this, and he said, "You can't be a." This is his exact quote. "You can't be a namby-pamby decision maker and be a good quarterback. You got to make a decision and do it like hell." And that's kind of the reverse of Joe Milton, isn't it? Where he's not I don't think choosing Tennessee was an easy choice for Peyton Manning over Ole Miss, but once he's one that once he chooses it, he's all in, right? And Joe Milton seems the type where he can't be all in even when he makes a decision. And so, yeah, that's kind of an issue. I don't think anybody handled this well, though. I'm going to be honest. Josh Heupel, if what you're saying is true, Josh Heupel should have told Joe Milton, you have till Christmas to make your decision. And if you don't make your decision, I'm just going to make it for you. And that's it. And like you let him make the trip to Florida. That's what blows me away on that. And they started practicing in Florida yesterday, didn't they?
Yes. I mean, they've, I would imagine that they held a morning practice, and this news leaked out when some of the guys talked to the players. So I'm imagining that Joe Milton was not at practice. I mean, we do want to credit Brent with breaking this at On3. So, but I don't see a lot of specifics as to whether or not he went out there and practiced. And listen, Joe Milton wanted to play. This is a situation where you've kind of painted yourself in a corner being a Florida guy and talking about how you don't lose at Florida. So I think had this game been in Charlotte, the Belt Bowl or whatever they used to call it, I don't think Joe Milton would have pushed himself as hard to be the starting quarterback for this football team. I think the fact that it was in Florida affected his decision, which isn't a good reason to have your decision affected at all. But I do think it was a factor. Shouldn't have been, but it was.
Totally agree. I think it was. I think this is and this has been the issue with Joe the whole time. Just the indecisiveness has consistently been something that has plagued Tennessee throughout his time. I think Joe Milton, again, I guess you either have it or you don't when it comes to decisiveness. But this is the closest thing to this. This is way more dramatic. This had to do with the whole future of the program, but it just felt like 92 Tennessee with Fulmer and Majors and that whole split that we've talked about for years. I remember Heath Schuler saying that the team got split because they didn't know who to follow as a coach. And it just seemed like the team didn't know who to follow as a quarterback in this situation. And so, yeah, I think this is a failure of handling by a lot of people. And I mean, it's weird. We should be talking about the excitement of Nico playing in the bowl game. And Dave, I'm more baffled by just how this was such a failure of leadership in so many ways. I mean, this is a knock on Heupel that this wasn't handled better, isn't it?
It's a knock on Heupel for the past few months. I think that the leadership was very clear previously. It was Heupel number one, Hooker number two, everybody else that filters through. I think that Josh Heupel wasn't genuine with himself. I think at some point during or before the season, he saw that Nico was a better option at quarterback, but that was incredibly tough to do, to pull that trigger when Milton was very liked and you were getting by and you were getting to an 8-win season. I think there were a lot of factors that went into that. And is it an indictment of leadership? Yes, to some extent it is. I don't think you put your best player for a good portion of the season on out on the field, and therefore didn't give your team its best chance to win for a good portion of the season. That's been my stance all along. I think you can back me on that, Caleb. So I'm not just trying to throw leaves on a bonfire here. I believe that has been the case for quite some time.
Yeah, that's been your stance. I disagree with that stance. I'm going to be honest. I think that Heupel was trying to get Nico in football shape, and I think he did feel that it. I think the only way that Nico was going to get the start was if Nico was definitively better than Joe, and I don't think there was any point in the season where Nico was definitively better than Joe yet until maybe November came along, and so I think it was close enough where Joe Milton had the locker room. It was worth this 1 year transition year to go from Joe to Nico. It's, historically that has worked out in the past. And so I don't think it was an issue to start Joe Milton throughout the year, but I do think it was an issue to not be totally sure of what to do with Joe Milton and in the postseason. And look, this is not, guys, Heupel's, I will say this, whether you agree with me or Dave on that, what's very clear, and we're going to have to point this out. I'm a fan of Heupel's play calling. I know you disagree with me on his play calling this year in a couple of games. I have no problem with some of the play calls he made. But what I think is very clear is Heupel's off-season and non-game decision-making is starting to be very questionable. I mean, we're talking about a guy who watched Joe Milton and Hendon Hooker and made the decision to start Joe Milton in September of 2021 when it was very obvious to everybody that Hendon Hooker was better. We're talking about a guy who this past offseason, you know this, Dave, we have to say to a certain degree mishandled the Cooper Mays injury, didn't he? By not having him get surgery in April? Or not letting him get surgery in April?
Yes, I thought that Cooper Mays should have probably had surgery earlier and they should have detected that. Yes. Are you talking about the overall management of the entire program?
We have to start asking about Joe Biden, listen to me, Josh Heupel's management of the roster. Yes, we have to ask about Josh Heupel's management of the roster. And I think that's a very fair statement to make because while Josh Heupel's an amazing play caller, he has missed on a lot of talent and he's mismanaged his roster in a lot of different ways.
I think this was not. So the question we're asking, was this precipitated by something that happened with Tennessee's coaching and or game preparation? You're saying basically it did. They came to Joe and they said, something's happening. You're not playing as much. Joe said, kick rocks. So Joe said, I'm leaving. If that's the case, and we are speculating, how bad would that hurt his legacy at Tennessee, or would it?
No, I don't think it. I think Joe's legacy is what it is. He's a Jimmy Streeter type quarterback that wasn't great, but everybody respects because he stuck it out. My theory wouldn't necessarily disprove your theory, Dave. You could be right that he was totally unsure of what was going on. And then maybe the coaches said kick rocks. Maybe the coaches were like, we're tired of you waiting, so we're going with Nico, period, end of story.
Or at least said, listen, maybe that. I think here's my theory. I'm telling you, this is my theory. I've not heard this. I do know the team was getting frustrated. I will tell you that 100%. That's not a theory. The team was getting frustrated by not knowing who the quarterback was going to be. I will tell you that some of the people, if Joe was in any shape, form, or fashion forced out, as we're implying, that could blow up in the locker room. There's no question about that. But my theory is, listen, Joe, my name's Josh Heupel. Let us know something by the time we land in Orlando, right? And his dad, in case you didn't read the story, is still posting on YouTube that his son's unsure. So that was on our YouTube channel. We wrote that. I know Christmas gets everybody in kind of a crazy days when news comes in, but we wrote that last week. I think he was unsure. I think he couldn't give them an answer. This is me speculating. Couldn't give them an answer when they landed in Orlando. And yeah, Josh Heupel said, listen, if it's that difficult for you to make up your mind, it's probably a wrong decision for you to play. We've all had our parents or paternal figures say something like that, right, Caleb? I think that's essentially where this came from. If you're that unsure about it, just move on. There's no shame in moving on. Go for it.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that's exactly how it went down. I agree. And it's a clean break from everybody. If that's how it went down, then I do a 180 from what I just suggested and said, maybe the team will be rallying now. Maybe they'll be excited. I mean,
And I think it's important to note that Jacob Warren here, I wasn't even asking a question in that regard. And he said early, this is 2 weeks ago. That's the Vol report brought to you by Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Haun. He said at the time, he said it'd be exciting to play with the kid, is what he called him, and said I wasn't even going in that direction. And he offered that up. And that was brought to you by our friends at Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Haun. LASIK, also cataract surgery, regular eye examinations. Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Haun. Enjoy life better when you see better. The local vision service for LASIK cataract surgery and regular eye examination, ccteyes.com. So maybe he finally saw the future, and the future is Nico. The question I have is the future. Should it have been before this point? Perhaps, but Tennessee fans certainly have a reason to get up early and fight through that New Year's Eve hangover and watch a guy named Nico take his first real snaps in college football. That, to me, changes this game tremendously on its likability factor.
It does. It's a huge deal. I think this had Jimmy's right. You guys are both right. I think you're going to see plane tickets and Citrus Bowl tickets spike today, probably. I mean, I just talked about, like, I joked with Dave, guys, before the show. I hate when people break news during the show because, like, I just talked about how this is going to be the worst Citrus Bowl of all time and the least exciting. And out of the blue, Joe Milton does this, and no knock on Joe Milton, but it's more like seeing Nico is going to totally invigorate the fans, is it not? So you got a 180 happening here with Tennessee that I don't think anybody saw coming. And you're right. I think this is. And by the way, Dave, you've been critical of me talking about my Nico Heisman hype next year. Are you on board yet? You think there's a chance he can get the hype that he needs in the preseason?
No, as a matter of fact, I took a little bit of Christmas to think how absurd that statement was, but I can't get that time back. So I'm not on board with that yet, but I would love for you to prove me wrong. It'd be great for content. I wonder, too, if we're at the point where some guys couldn't see it in practice, that Nico is considerably better than Joe Milton. So at some point, I've said NIL doesn't affect you if you're the left guard and you look at the quarterback and he's making more money. He had the girlfriend in high school too. That's nothing new, right? But if you're the left guard and you look at the quarterback and repeatedly the guy that's in there with the first team is not as good as the other guy, players see that, don't they?
Yeah, I agree. I think players can see that. And I also think we talk about him having the locker room, but it's very possible if you're indecisive in practicing with the team, that's the quickest way to lose a locker room, right?
I can't share everything I know, but yes, that was the fastest. That was the thing that was said to me.
Yeah, so it's very possible he lost the locker room because of that. So I think that's kind of the big story on this. I mean, look, it wouldn't be the first time Joe Milton had the locker room all year. It wouldn't be the first time he lost the locker room. Remember, he lost the locker room when he was named the starter 2 years ago by Josh Heupel. Players were not happy about that. And you kind of gave me more details, but I said at the time, I'm like, that there was a greater energy that showed when Hendon Hooker came in the game. And it was very clear to me that everybody thought Hendon Hooker should have gotten that job over Josh Heupel. And just something as simple as last year, I remember you on the Vol report with Cooper Mays, Dave, and Cooper Mays saying that when Hendon Hooker fumbled that ball against South Carolina, he did not even look for the ball to recover. He turned back to see if Hendon Hooker was okay, first and foremost. I mean, the team just loved Hendon Hooker that much. And Josh Heupel lost the team by not naming him the starter. And so, I mean, look, I still think Joe Milton will be remembered fondly, but he did enter Tennessee in a way that did not have the respect of the locker room, and he may have left in a way that didn't have the full respect of the locker room. I mean, maybe that's unfair to say, but that's how it's happening.
Yeah, good stuff.